you are likely earning less than 1%. If the inflation is, for example, 2%, it's a little bit less, a little bit more, depending who you ask, depends who you ask. But let's say that inflation is 2%, you're earning, let's say 1%, even though it's a little bit less. That means that over the course of a year, you lost your money, purchasing power was lost by 1%. Everybody, this is Nev with One Deal Away, and welcome to another episode of Money Matters with me, your host, Nev Kraguljic, also known as Nev K. Now, one of the things I wanted to do, and I've been wanting to do for a little while, but I figured we got to do the basics before we get to some of the cool things that I really want to share here with you. And one of the things that I wanted to share is it possible to make money through real estate without ever owning it? And the answer is yes, absolutely. And in today's episode, in today's show, I do want to spend a little bit of time showing you 6 different ways that I know of how you can actually make money through real estate without ever owning it. I hope you're excited. I hope you're ready. So here we go. Let's get started. The first one, the easiest one whatsoever, is get a job in the industry. Now, what do I mean by get a job in the industry? Industry is pretty darn big when it comes to real estate. You can be a realtor, you can be a mortgage broker, you can be a stager, right? Like somebody who comes in and stages the house. You could be an architect, you could be an interior designer, you could be all kinds of cool things, a developer. So people that actually work within the industry but don't own it. You can even be a property manager if you find yourself that you're really good at having those people skills, whether you're a property manager for long-term rentals or short-term rentals like Airbnb. All of those ways are excellent ways to make money through real estate, but of course getting a job is going to be one of those options. The second option is wholesale. All right. So wholesaling is basically you go out, you find a property that somebody's looking to sell potentially. You get it under contract. You don't buy it. You just get it under the contract. And then you go out while you're under that contract to find an actual end buyer. So for example, if Joe, let's have a Joe. Joe has a house that he wants to sell. In comes me, right? And I am the wholesaler. So I will go in, I will actually get this under contract, right? Here we go, little contract. And what I will do is I will then buy or find an investor who really wants to buy this property. I will assign the contract to them and I will charge them a small fee. Typically, it's a small percentage of what the value of it is, but typically value is about $5,000, sometimes $3,000, sometimes $10,000. So it just depends on the size of the deal. But that's how wholesalers make money, by basically connecting somebody who really wants to sell with somebody who really wants to buy, but they don't do it like a realtor. They do it a little bit on the side. It can get a bit trickier than this. This is a very simplified way to think about it. I don't specialize in wholesaling, but if wholesaling is something that is interesting to you, I just wanted to explain briefly what it is. There are plenty of people out there, I'm certain of it, who teach it. So if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, go and learn. All right, let's go into the next way to make money through real estate without ownership. And that way is going to be what is known as syndication. All right, syndication. Now, syndication is basically sort of like a partnership in real estate. If I'm a syndicator and I come to you and I say, I'm about to buy this super awesome apartment building Typically, syndications are large properties, although it doesn't always have to be, right? If you and I were to partner in buying a single family, that in some ways potentially could be syndication. But typically, when people talk about syndication as a whole, that's not what they have in mind. It's typically larger properties. Typically, we're buying a 100-unit apartment building. We're buying a city block. We're buying a city. I don't know. But that's kind of how syndication actually works. So say I want to buy something and the value of it or the price of it is $5 million. Now, unless I have money, typically about 20% down, to purchase this, in this case scenario, that would be $1 million. So if I have $1 million, I potentially could go in it, or I could find 10 people that have $100,000 each that will contribute towards it. We're going to go in together. We're going to purchase this property. We're going to find a property manager, somebody that is going to operate the whole thing. We all sort of own it, kind of. And depending on how this is structured, sometimes as person who's in syndication, you will be on the ownership side, meaning on the equity side. And other times you will be on the lender side. So it's kind of like playing within a debt piece. So you're not going to own anything, but you're going to get a certain percentage of the money from the income component back to you as an investor. Which brings me to method number 4 of how you can make money through real estate without ever owning it. And here we go. Number 4 is become a private lender. A private lender is basically a person who happens to have some money sitting around that is willing to deploy it. They understand that having money sitting in a bank account is not going to give them a whole lot of return on that money, right? If you have, say, $100,000 in a savings account today, you are likely earning less than 1%. If the inflation is, for example, 2%, it's a little bit less, a little bit more, depending who you ask, depends who you ask. But let's say that inflation is 2%, you're earning, let's say 1%, even though it's a little bit less. That means that over the course of a year, you lost your money, purchasing power was lost by 1%. Folks typically understand that and they say, I want to find something else that I can deploy my money in. So they start looking at different things. Maybe they like the real estate component and they say, you know what, I want to be a lender. I want to lend portion of the money or all of the money. So they may take $50,000 out of that $100,000 and they will lend it to Joe, who happens to be a real estate flipper. For example, Joe will basically go use that $50,000, purchase the property, they will fix it. Joe will then flip it, make the money on their own way. But over the course of the time that he has this money, let's say it's 1 or 2 years, he will be paying, say, 5%. For an individual who happens to have money in a bank account, making right now in savings 1%, or can go and lend it to Joe at 5%, it makes more sense for him or her to lend that money out, and that is how you can make money through real estate. You can become a private lender. Those folks are also known as hard money lenders or asset-based lenders. So there you go. In case you hear it, you know exactly what it is. Now, that brings me to yet another way that you can make money through real estate, and that is by tax liens. Now, tax liens are basically when you own a property, you have to have taxes. You have to pay taxes. Certain states work on tax liens. So if you don't pay a tax over the course of that year, you will get a notice, typically not a very nice notice saying that, hey, this is your friendly government, or sometimes not so friendly, and we're reminding you, you owe us money. We are putting this lien on your property. Now, if you don't pay off that lien on the property after a specified period of time, the government could care less about the lien. They actually just want the money. So what they'll do is they'll take that lien, they'll put it at an auction, and smart investors will go out, purchase that lien, and they will make money off of it. And here's kind of how that sort of works. Let's say that there will be a lien. We're going to pretend that this is what the lien looks like. I really need to improve on my drawing skills, y'all. So this is a lien, and say that this lien comes at 10% interest per year, and say that it's $1,000. So that means that I, as an investor, would put in $1,000, get a lien on this property, and for the duration of that 1 year, I'll earn 10% of it. Again, if I happen to have money sitting in a bank account somewhere earning me 1% or less, I can go out and get a lien at 10%, which is way more money than just mere 1%. What ends up happening is that a year later or 6 months later or 2 years later, depending state to state, county to county, the property owner will figure out how to pay for it. They will pay the stuff. They will pay me $1,000 back plus the 10% that has been agreed on that is being owed to me. And there you go. I have made my money without ever owning real estate whatsoever. And final piece of how you can become a person who's making money through real estate without ever owning it is to get a lease. Sometimes this is going to be called a master lease. And by getting this lease, you can actually sublease it to somebody else. So if you want to make money through leasing, what you want to do is make sure that when you get into that lease, that it allows you to sometimes sublease it to make money. So for example, say that I can find a really great deal where I can get an apartment that I can lease for, say, $1,000 a month. Maybe the current owner doesn't understand that the market could demand $1,500 or even $1,200. So what I will do is I might find something else where I will go and lease it again and then find another tenant to step into my place and lease it from me. So I will sublease it to somebody for, say, $1,500, but I am leasing it for $1,000, meaning I am making $500 just because I am actually in the process. Sometimes, oftentimes, those things are not allowed with current leases, but of course, that really differs from place to place and from owner to owner, from lease to lease. So make sure you read the legal documents before you decide what is or is not possible. So there you go. Those are the 6 ways that I could think of how you can make money through real estate without ever owning a piece of it. I hope this was helpful to you. If you can think of any other ways, please feel free to hit me below, put your comments in. I'm happy to learn even more. These are the things that I could come up with, and I hope this was helpful to you. Until next time, stay forever money blessed, and do remember, you are only one deal away. I want you to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? I want to be happy.